top of the mind for a number of Santa Feans these days is a Forest Service project to thin a densely forested area of forest land alongside Hyde Park Road. The area is adjacent to hundreds of homes and several campgrounds. It also runs up to the ridge where the Santa Fe watershed begins. Those opposed to the project say it would destroy natural habitat for animals that would allow for erosion once the trees are thinned out. On the line is Ranger Sandy Herlock with the Santa Fe National Forest. He's out in the field now on his cell phone. Sandy Herlock, if this project is approved and you're in a final comment period now to see what people think, when would the thinning begin and how? Sandy Herlock?
The most likely time to burn would be in the fall, and so it would not be any time sooner than September, October.
But first you would thin, right?
Well, we have two alternatives in this project. One actually has fire component, the other one doesn't. And so in both of them, we would thin with a machine, which is called mastication on the ridges. And so that would happen before we did any burning. Because what we need is the ridges to hold. Basically, we cut down the smaller trees on the ridges and grind them up and spread them out on the ground, which gives us the conditions that then we can go in. If the fire alternative were picked, we would go in and then light from those points that would hold the fire and keep the fire under the conditions we want, which is low flame lengths and these are low fire behavior out of the crowns.
But you're talking about burning piles of wood, not standing trees.
Well, if that alternative were picked, we would actually go in. For instance, in the watershed thinning, what we did is we went in and thinned and piled, and then we are now in the process of finishing up burning the piles. With this project, because of the way the fuel is in the stand, and where we intend to burn is south-facing slopes, which are less dense, and so we can go in there without having to cut and pile and get the same effect, which is to eliminate the small trees.
But it would retain the big trees, would it?
Right.
Even though you're actually burning everything, the big trees wouldn't go. Right.
I mean, the time of year that we would go, and with the appropriate wind, we wouldn't burn during high winds and really super dry conditions, or even like June conditions. We would burn during the fall, and so that we'd be able. And we would start at the top of the ridge and strip fire in, so that we're not if you light at the bottom, you burn from the bottom to the top, which happens a lot in wildfires. You create a lot of heat, and the flames get into the crowns, and then once they're in the crowns, then it's really a whole different kind of a fire. But if we burn at the right time of the year under the right conditions, then what we're able to do is have the fire burn, kill the small trees, and then keep the big ones intact.
How dense are these stands of trees?
Some of them are over 100 trees, over 1,000 trees per acre. We have some areas on the north-facing slopes where the fir has come in under the ponderosa pine and is really, really dense.
And that's many more trees than an acre can support, as I understand it.
Especially in the southwest, in these ponderosa pine forests. When you get higher, like up in spruce fir kinds of ecosystems up in the wilderness, that kind of density isn't that unusual, but it's a whole different fire regime up there too.
But what about the erosion, though? Is there still the possibility for erosion after thinning and burning?
Well, the experience we have just over the ridge in the watershed, in the Santa Fe watershed, is that when we burn in the fall, after it's been, you get rain in August, and what that does is pretty much gets the ground good and wet and the soil good and wet. And a couple weeks of drying in September or October after the rain stopped, and you're able to go in and burn the needles and the other materials that we want to burn. And you're basically protecting the soils by that moist soils. And we have actually been into the watershed after September when we burned last year, and we had our soils folks and wildlife folks walk through there, and you're hard-pressed to find any damage to the soils.
Sandy Hurl, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.